In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can create this big, large ring in the spine that goes through the body of the knife. And here we are inside of Maya. This is actually the final ZBrush file that was pushed over from ZBrush after the process is done. I'm going to go ahead and hide the high res. I'm going to open up Geo, and then I'm going to go to this back ring and open this. I'm going to hit Shift H for this so we can actually take a look at this piece and see what was created for this. So if you take a look, this is the base cage for this. If I tap 3, you can see it's a pretty simple shape that we got going on here. We've also got this shape that I made here, and I'm going to push this and move this out just a little bit so we can kind of see what's going on. These are set to a slight angle going in, so if you want to take a look, I'm going to go over to ZBrush and show you kind of what was going on with this thing. On the high res piece, you can see that there's a little bit of this angle that's been kind of cut away from this thing, so it's not perfectly the same shape all the way through. There's a slight tapering of this thing, and it's a little bit of a cutaway. So this shape right here is what we're using for this kind of cut that you see there. And if I turn this on, you can see the cylinder cuts that we have that were made from this. So nothing too special about this thing. Really, the shape is pretty darn simple to make. This is probably the more complex thing to kind of make through this thing. So I'm going to hit undo to get this back into location. I'll hide this. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the strategy for making this thing. So if we go to our side view and we actually take a look here for this, I'm going to hide this piece as well. And Maya's got a primitive in here called pipes that makes it really easy to make cylinders that have thickness to it. So if we go create polygon primitives, and we do a pipe, you can see the option box for the creation for this thing. If I have this going down through x-axis, like this, and close it up. Maybe I'll do the divisions, maybe like 32, because I know this needs to be a pretty big circle that's got a lot of divisions to it. Let's go ahead and use that. So we'll go create polygon primitives. I'll turn off interactive creation. So I'll do create polygon primitives now and do a pipe. And this is telling me it's created the pipe right here. I can select it. I can rotate it. I'll hold down J as I rotate, and that'll snap this to a -90. And then I'll just tap W and then move this into position right here. And let me just go ahead and scale this up to where we get this pretty close to this right in here. So we want to try to match up the circular part of that as much as possible. And you can see the subdivision axis is set to 16. Those options that I had didn't hold, so I can just change that to 32 like that. And the thickness, I can middle mouse drag that. If I hold down Control while I middle mouse, it'll give me smaller incremental kind of scaling. So I think that's going to be pretty good for what we need. Now there is a subdivision for the height, and that is, if I do that one, you won't see anything happen unless we go to the 3/4 view. If we drag that out, you can see we're going to get a division kind of like that. So maybe I'll do subdivision of height, I'll do 2, and subdivision of caps, if I do that one, I can get a split going down the center of this thing right here like that. So the other thing is I want to make sure that this thing is about the correct scale for this. Now if I do this, I'm going to need to bring back the body for this part. So let's see where we got our blade handle. I'm just going to unhide that part right there and then zoom in on here. And then again, I want to make sure that this thing fits pretty snug to everything. I'll tap 5 to turn off my lighting so I can kind of see what's going on here. So I think that's pretty good. You can see we can intersect here and then just pull it back just a little bit and give it just a little bit of breathing room, just like that. So I'll hide the handle. And then now we've got, again, the start of everything that we kind of need for this. Now, if the divisions of 32 are a bit too high, we could go back down to maybe 16. And I think that's probably about where I pulled this from. And then we can go to our vertices. If we right click and say vertex, and then we can start to move this guy up and through here. And then maybe we've got this in here like this, and maybe something like that. And what I believe that I did at that point was start to pull this thing out kind of right into something like this in here. So we've got some kind of topology moving down the center of this. If we tap 3 and we take a look at it, let's see what we got. Now we're going to take our edges and we'll hit F10 and we'll select our edges all the way around like this, and then right here as well. So I'm just holding down shift and double clicking like that, and then we can shift right click and get to our crease tool. Middle mouse drag to the right, just like that. Now I could take these edges, and I know I'm going to build this out, and I could get rid of the creasing on there. I can hold the crease, whatever. Either way, I'll be fine, because I know I'm going to take these faces here. I'm going to tap 1, and I'm going to start to extrude those out. So I'll hit W for the move tool, and I'll just shift right click and say extrude face, and I'll take it off local mode and put it into world translation like this, and I can kind of rotate maybe this thing here, and then I'll hit F9 and I'll just reposition these verts just a little bit right in through here like this. And what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to do another extrusion on this. So I'll grab these faces, hit undo, and get that selection back, and just shift right click and say extrude a face again, move it in world mode. Because if we don't move it in world mode, sometimes you get some maybe weird translation on that, where it kind of translates it and it skews it away from being symmetrical. I've had that happen to me sometimes, so that's why I like to move in that world mode like that. Now what we can do is use less geometry, get this thing into position. I'll do another extrusion on this, and I'll move it right to about here. And then if we get it all the way to the place that we kind of need this thing to be, then we can just maybe move these verts like so. We're going to move these up. I don't want this to show through the circular cuts in those areas, and so then I'll kind of try to make the spacing of the center part maybe just a little bit more even, like this. And then once I've got this laid out, we can go to the modeling toolkit, or we can go into object mode, shift right click. We want to get to that multi-cut tool, and if I hold down control, I can add new splits in through here. So just trying to add more geometry that'll give us some support for this. And as we do that, if we tap 3, and then let's harden our edges on this thing. So hit F10, or you can shift right click, or sorry, just right click and grab your edges, either way. And so I'll select all this. I'm just holding down shift as I click on these like that. Let's get this last one right here like that, and I will get rid of actually let's go ahead and shift right click and crease tool. So we crease that, and now I need to get rid of the crease on here like that, so it kind of rounds out a little bit. Now you can see as I added those spans in here, this curvature of this thing is a little bit funky, so I'm going to go to the side view, and then now we can go in the smooth mesh preview mode, take this and move it around a little bit and kind of finesse it. Now I'm going to have the spine of this thing go inside the body just a little bit. I don't want it to stick out past the body. So I'm going to take this and I'll scale this in this way a little bit to kind of round that thing out just a little bit more. I'll take these and I can scale them all this way and kind of make them a bit more straight if I want to do that. Like this, and I'm going to grab these verts and move them up like so. And so this is basically what we're going to do to kind of create this shape. Now, if I want to get really kind of nitpicky about this kind of comes up and through here, and then we've got this area that needs more geometry. So the only thing that we could do is add the multi-cut tool and add some more geometry right through about there. And then that gives us a little bit more to work with. We can hit F9 and then move this into position right about here. And then we'll take this and move this into position right here. And then I'll take this and get this right to the top there. Maybe take this one and lift it up just a little bit, just like that, and within there. And I could take this piece here and maybe kind of finesse it a little bit better. If I just want to get a more kind of appealing kind of curve to this, you're never probably going to see any of this stuff, so it's really not that big of a deal. But I'm just trying to make the best shapes that I possibly can. So I'm just going to take this and move this up and through here. Okay, so this gives us all the pieces that we need for this thing right here, like that. And then if we're going to do these cylinder cuts, that's pretty darn easy. All we got to do is go create a polygon primitive and do a cylinder. And if we go to the creation options for this, we could do 16, or we could even drop it down to something like 8, something like this. Scale that thing down. Maybe scale it out this way a bit more. If you tap 3 for this, we can get this and get our edges. So we'll tap F10, double click our edges, holding down Shift and adding that as I double clicked. We'll Shift right click to get to the crease tool, and then we just got this shape here like that, right? So that's pretty easy. And then once we make one of them, we can move that into position, try to get it about the right size that we see here. So I'm just going to move this into position just like this. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit and try to scale this the best that I can based off of the image I have. The quality's not that great, so I just kind of estimate what's going on in here. So I'll just keep scaling that down just a little bit, like this. And I think that's going to be pretty good for the size. Now I'm going to go to this and just check and make sure that it goes out past further than the width of this. So it'll just be really easy to have it stick out quite a bit. These are going to become those negative shapes inside of ZBrush, so it doesn't really matter for that. Now you could go here and say modify freeze transformations, maybe delete the history on it, Alt Shift D. And then I've got one of these and I can move it. And then if I go to the side, and go here, we can hit Control D just to duplicate that thing, and we can move it over here like this. Now if I hit Shift D, it'll duplicate with the transforms, and I can get kind of even spacing for this for how it's been pushed for that first one. And then I can kind of just take these and maybe reposition them, and I'll just move it up and down until it hits the center point, hits right about here for this. Like this, right in here. So that's how the cylinders were created, like that. And then now to get this shape that we were talking about for this, that kind of cuts in on this thing. This is probably a little bit more difficult thing. So let me just group these cylinders like this, and I'll call this maybe body ring, something like that, whatever. I'm just going to give it a name for now just to keep it a little organized. I'm going to hide this right here. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it, and I'll unhide this. And then what I want to do is I'm going to tap 1. I'm going to use the multi-cut tool, and let's go to the modeling toolkit, get the multi-cut tool, and I'm going to cut away from this thing something like this in here. And I'll take the verts and I'll merge them together. So I can take these two verts, I can shift right click and say merge vertices to center. That's one way of dealing with it. Sometimes if this target weld thing works, it's cool, but sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes it works good. The nice thing about if you take 2 points like this and you merge vertices to center, it actually goes and averages out the position of that. So that comes in handy sometimes for you, like this. So I'm going to take this and move this in through here. Maybe move this in through here like this. I'll tap 3 for this here. I'll take my edges and I'll select all these and I'll crease these, crease tool like this. Okay. So basically all I really want now is this little part like that. So if I select these faces on here like this, if I hold down Shift and drag a marquee around everything, it will make a new selection, but whatever selected, it'll deselect from it. So it's kind of like giving you an inverse or something. So that comes in handy sometimes. I'll hit backspace for that. I'll tap 1 for this thing here. And then I can take this and I will take these faces and we'll extrude them out this way, extrude face, and take it off of local mode and put it into world position mode. And I can just take these and move it like this. And I'll tap 3 for this, and I want to get hard edges on this and this end and this end like this. So I'll shift right click and say crease tool. So you can see how I've made a very flat shape like this. So now this gives me this kind of ramp thing, right? And now to make this into a cutting tool, what I would do is select these edges here and then just pull them in. So however far I kind of pull this thing in, it's going to give me the angle for the cut. Now, I probably shouldn't select this one and maybe this one, and I should kind of pull this in like this. And then maybe we hit F10, select these top faces like this, and then pull them up to give maybe even more of an angle. So if I bring the body back and take a look at this, we can start to kind of see maybe what we're trying to cut away for this thing. So this isn't perfect by any means, kind of what I'm producing here as far as a shape goes. Actually, I shouldn't have moved these faces. Let's bring the body back. And let's take a look and see what I need to kind of pull in for this. And actually, to be honest, I'm not sure why this got so far moved from this, but I can just take this and snap this up. I'll move these points and hold down V and just snap them to these edges. And really what's going on if I show my wireframe unshaded, I know that I've got verts there, so it's just really kind of snapping to that. So if I tap 3 for this, let's tap 3 for this one as well. Let's go to the object mode, tap 3, and then 3. So now we can kind of see a one-to-one. I'm not exactly sure what I did that caused this to kind of move like this. I'm going to take this one and just snap it to that and make sure that this is snapped up, and then I'll hold down V and then snap here as I move down. Let's go back, hit undo, and then hold down V and just snap here like that. Okay, so looks like everything's back to normal, and I've got these verts here. And what I want to do is I want to pull them in and have it cut away from this thing, maybe about at that angle, and then I can kind of lift this up just a little bit just to make sure that it's going to maybe intersect the way that I'm kind of hoping for, like this. So this cut here, if we go to the channel box and then let's delete history and then modify freeze transformations on this, and then we can mirror this across, shift right click and say mirror. We've got these 2 pieces now that's going to kind of cut away from this thing here. Okay. All right, and let's hop on over to ZBrush, and I guess before I do that, I just want to make sure I keep emphasizing this thing here, that we've got, I'm going to hide these pieces. We've got this back ring and that we were looking at before, the pieces. And we've got all this. I want to duplicate this entire group like this. I'm going to hide this one. And we're going to convert this stuff to the smooth mesh preview. Now, I think I left this on put divisions of 3 to make sure we've got a nice amount of geometry, not too much, nothing too crazy. And so we got our shapes here for this. I've taken the cylinders and I've merged them together. So we just take all the cylinders and then go mesh combine. And we want to combine those together. That way, whenever it sends it to ZBrush as a FBX file, it'll make 1, 2, 3 things. I've got a main body, and then these 2 will become cuts. If I don't merge those together, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cylinders. So as I export this to FBX, it'll bring all those into ZBrush, but it'll be a bunch of different smaller pieces, and it's kind of hard to manage to do stuff with that, right? So I can take this whole group after I'm done, export that as an FBX, and then we're just heading back on over to ZBrush at this point, and we're importing those pieces in. So you can see here's the cut piece that I had for this. We've got this piece here is the final result of everything. And let's see if I can, this file is getting a little bit hard to manage where everything is at. And here it is. Okay, so here is what we have right now for this piece. We've got this main piece, and I'll put it on solo mode, and we can take a look at everything that was created for this. So this is what it looks like coming in. If we got live booleans turned on, we can turn on our cylinders, and we can have those be negative shapes. So you can see those are cutting those away, right like that. If we turn on a polyframe, we can select these and actually kind of get a preview of what's going on with the geo. So I think that makes sense. The only other thing that I didn't talk about is I stole some of the screws from the earlier part of the body, and I was using those as negatives to cut out. So I'm cutting out 2 holes for this thing. And then this becomes this tapered kind of piece that cuts into this thing. So you may or may not like maybe the way that this thing looks, and maybe you want to finesse it a little bit more. And I probably could have spent maybe a little bit more time with this thing. The cool thing about this workflow is after it's there, I could maybe use the move tool and watch. I could move it in this mode, and I can kind of see what's happening with it there. But I can turn off polyframe too, and you can still, if it's selected, you can still manipulate this thing, and you can get a better kind of preview of maybe what's going on with this thing. You can even hold down shift and kind of smooth out that model that's using as a cut. And like I could take this and kind of pull this down a little bit more right in through there. So it's just kind of like I said, it's just kind of interesting that you can actually manipulate that shape. It's not visible, but you can kind of see what's the result of that cut just by manipulating some of this stuff. I could even run a polish on that thing and see what's happens to that shape. So once you're happy with it, again, you're just going to use the this live boolean master. And if you want to do a single start, maybe put a start on top of that. But this is just this entire object, right? And we're just going to run that operation. As soon as it's done, then we've got our union mesh that it creates. Not this one. And again, I'm going to click through these guys, try to find the final thing, and then I'm just running this polish. Again, the polish exists under deformation. We've got polish there, and I like to keep that in my custom interface. So after we've run the live boolean, we go to Dynamesh master, and then just maybe make it a 1.5 million polys, run the polish on it, and then you get that shape. Once the shape's made, I was starting to build this bigger file. Let's see, where's the bigger file? That's got all the different pieces on here. So I'm just gonna keep clicking through until I get there. It's this one. So I just, after every piece was made, I'm just going to the subtool section and append, and I find the piece that I've got. Now, if I was doing this in production, I wouldn't be probably keeping all this stuff around like this. I would probably have it a bit more organized. Um, but I'm just kind of currently trying to keep all these shapes around so I can kind of talk about them and how they were created. So that's how this shape was created for this big, large ring. And after that, we'll talk maybe a little bit about this clip, this piece here, adding this little piece, and adding some of the screws and things like that.